Hi, I'm Martin Felsen. Welcome to City Design, where we explore how we shape cities and how cities shape us. This city history episode is about 3 cities built from the ruins of Rome. Last episode, we watched Rome lose its center as a new Christian center took shape beyond the old walls. But Rome left behind an urban inheritance, and 3 very different civilizations each picked it up and built a new kind of city from Rome's ruins. Let's start with the city that outlasted Rome itself by 1,000 years. In 324, construction began on a new capital city, New Rome. The city was built on a strait between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Today, the Bosphorus Strait divides Europe and Asia, and Istanbul stretches across both continents. This is also where New Rome was officially dedicated and named the new capital of the Roman Empire. And New Rome was renamed Constantinople after its emperor, Constantine. Constantinople was built on a triangular peninsula. The site was ideal, easy to defend, with water on 3 sides, which made it hard for any enemy to gain an upper hand. And it sat on the era's busiest trade routes, far closer than Rome to the wealthy cities of the East along the Silk Road. For roughly 7 centuries, from the age of Justinian to the year 1204, Constantinople was the largest, richest city in the early Christian world. The original Rome had evolved over 1,000 years, layered with temples to 100 pagan gods. Constantinople was Christian from the beginning, so instead of temples, it built monumental churches. Some we can still walk through today: Hagia Irene, meaning holy peace, and Hagia Sophia, meaning holy wisdom. The people of Constantinople called it the Heavenly City, the New Jerusalem, an earthly kingdom of heaven, and, they believed, a city under the protection of the Virgin Mary. But faith alone doesn't keep a city safe for 1,000 years. Walls do. A series of stone walls protected the city from both the land and the sea. The first walls were built by Constantine, but as the city grew, the walls grew with it. Under the Emperor Theodosius, Constantinople built one of the most formidable defenses of the ancient world. The wall wasn't just a wall, it was a layered, triple-line system. It began with a moat, 60 feet wide, 10 feet deep, as a first line of defense, then a terrace, and a lower outer wall studded with towers for archers, then another terrace, and a tall inner wall, 40 feet high, 16 feet thick, crowned with 96 towers. Attackers faced a fully enclosed wall they couldn't climb, ram, or tunnel. And one gate in the wall was unique: the Golden Gate, a triumphal arch of white marble, its doors sheathed in gold, was where a victorious emperor entered the city in procession. The Theodosian walls worked for 1,000 years. Only in 1453, when the Ottomans arrived with gunpowder siege cannons, did they finally fail. But walls are only part of the story of how a city survives siege after siege in the Middle Ages. Another vital part of the story is water. Old Rome's aqueducts were visible targets, relatively easy for an enemy to cut. Constantinople built aqueducts too, but it added 2 strategic and monumental components that its enemies couldn't reach: hidden tunnels and hidden storage. Aqueducts like the Aqueduct of Valens pulled fresh water from springs over 100 miles away through a chain of channels and tunnels, and the city stored that water underground in vast concealed reservoirs beneath the streets. The Basilica Cistern is the grandest of several hundred ancient cisterns that still lie beneath modern-day Istanbul. This underground reservoir is a sunken palace, a hall of 336 marble columns holding up a ceiling of brick cross vaults covering vital fresh water. Many of the columns were salvaged from older pagan temples. The builders needed them at the same height, so they shimmed the shorter ones with carved blocks scavenged from Roman ruins. 2 columns rest on the carved heads of Medusa, the monster of Greek myth, set sideways and upside down in the dark, now supporting the city's drinking water. And legend says another column, etched with what looks like teardrops, honors the workers who died building the hidden reservoir. A highly visible monument in the city was the Hippodrome, a Roman chariot racing track for tens of thousands. The Hippodrome of Constantine ran longer than 4 modern football fields. Down its center spine stood monuments hauled in from across the empire. A couple of them still stand today, in the square in Istanbul where the racetrack used to be. The walled obelisk is 1,000 years old. The obelisk of Theodosius is over 3,500 years old, built by the Egyptians and already ancient when the Romans shipped it right here. The sports fans rooted for teams, but these were far more than teams. The blues and the greens were part sports club, part political party, part street hooligans. Their rivalry tangled up fandom, politics, and religion, and it sometimes boiled over into violence. The worst came in the year 532. The two factions stopped fighting each other and turned on the emperor. The anti-government Nicarites nearly toppled the emperor Justinian, killed thousands, and burned much of the city to the ground. But out of those ashes came one of the great buildings of the age, Hagia Sophia. Its design differed from the Roman church basilica of the time, which is a long building pulling people forward toward the altar under a modest pitched or flat wooden roof. Hagia Sophia has a monumental dome, and the dome pulls the gaze up and holds a person still. The Roman church basilica is a path. The dome is a place. To float this round dome, 100 feet across, over a monumental room took a new geometry. The architects utilized a pendentive dome at an unprecedented scale. 4 triangular parts of a sphere, one in each corner, gather the weight of the round dome down onto 4 points. The circle morphs into a square. Centuries before, the Roman architect Vitruvius had set the human body inside both a circle and a square. Here again, those same 2 shapes carry a cosmic meaning. The circle is the heavens, the square is the earth, and the new element, the pendentive triangle bridging them, was the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the thing that joins heaven to earth. The theology of the original church made visible in the structure itself. And then the architects made all that weight disappear. The base of the dome is ringed with 40 arched windows, so the light pours in and the heavy stone seems to float. The historian Procopius, who saw it knew, said the dome seemed to hang from heaven by a golden chain. The walls are sheathed in polished marble and glittering gold mosaic, so everything reads as luminous surface rather than mass. Even the columns are carved like patterned cloth. Where Rome built with weight, New Rome built with light. So Constantinople was the first of 3 outcomes we're exploring after Rome's fall. Where Constantinople preserved much of the old Roman system, the second civilization made different choices. It didn't preserve the old Roman center. It replaced it with something new. From the time of the Prophet Muhammad through the caliphates of the 7th and 9th centuries, the armies of a new faith, Islam, moved out of the Arabian Peninsula and conquered many of the wealthiest, most urban lands of the old Roman East: Syria, Egypt, North Africa, and eventually much of Spain, building one of the largest empires in history within just a few generations. And despite the conquests, despite the new rulers, the cities kept working. The new Islamic rulers didn't burn the Roman cities down. They moved in, kept the streets and water running, and set about building a new kind of center built around 2 things: the monument and the mosque. One of the earliest of these new structures was built just outside of Arabia in Jerusalem, and like the monuments that had stood on that same hill before it, it was built to be seen. The Dome of the Rock, completed in 691, is one of the oldest surviving Islamic buildings. Its shape is patterned from nearby Byzantine shrines, an octagon, wrapped in 2 rings of stone columns, so pilgrims can circle a sacred rock at its center. This rock is the foundation stone, sacred in different ways to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. Above the rock floats a gilded, double-shelled wooden dome, and a ring of windows beneath it washes the stone below in daylight. The dome, on the Holy Hill, is a purposeful urban counterpoint to the great Christian church across the city skyline, the Holy Sepulchre. And the building's ornamentation was something genuinely new. There are no human figures, no saints, no emperors. Islam avoided images of living things in its sacred spaces. So instead, the mosaic surfaces highlight elaborate geometries, jeweled crowns, and winding vines, the patterns we now call arabesque. And running for 800 feet around the interior is a band of Arabic calligraphy, some of the oldest surviving written verses of the Quran. Writing itself becomes the ornament. The Dome of the Rock was built new, but more often, new rulers didn't build from scratch at all. They inherited existing structures and transformed them. In Damascus, the Romans transformed a sanctuary to a Semitic storm god into a temple to Jupiter. When Rome became Christian, the temple precinct in Damascus became a church, dedicated to John the Baptist. Then in the early 700s, under the Umayyad caliphs, who took the city by negotiated surrender, sparing the Christians and their property, it became the Great Mosque of Damascus, one of the oldest and grandest mosques in the world. And the Roman architecture is still there. The Roman outer walls still stand. Roman gateways still puncture through them. Greek and Christian inscriptions can still be read. And a Roman corner tower became the base of a minaret, so the call to prayer now goes out from a foundation laid for a pagan god. Inside, builders line the courtyard with gold and green mosaic. No saints, no emperors, but a vision of paradise. Rivers, trees, and palaces running along the walls. 3 religions, 3 empires, 1 set of walls. Nobody tore it down and started over. Each new faith moved into the last one's building and made it its own. But it takes a lot of work to adapt and readapt a building as its purpose keeps shifting over the centuries. What if we designed a building that was meant to adapt over time? In the 7th century, the hypostyle mosque was designed to change as the city changes. It evolved from the house of the Prophet Muhammad himself, a modest residence with an open courtyard beside a long prayer space, its roof supported by rows of columns. Unlike a building, like a church, with a fixed, figural plan, a hypostyle mosque can grow and adapt. Columns can be added in any direction with no fixed edges. As more worshippers arrive in the city, another row of columns, bays, and arches can be added, and the building grows. The Great Mosque of Kairouan in Tunisia is one of the oldest and most remarkable hypostyle mosques. Its prayer hall is a field of columns, many salvaged from Roman and Byzantine ruins, so a worshipper walks through an older world on the way to prayer. The masterpiece of the adaptable mosque is in Spain. In Cordoba, the Great Mosque was begun in 785 and then extended again and again over 2 centuries, each ruler expanding the field of columns further until it held a field of over 800 columns. Cordoba's builders beautifully solved a difficult problem. Their salvaged Roman columns were far too short for the tall, airy hall they envisioned, so they stacked arches, one tier above another, striped in red brick and white stone, row after row, creating a hypnotic optical effect. By the year 1000, the city around that hall in Cordoba was likely the largest city in Western Europe, a place of running water, street lighting, and dozens of libraries and schools, while most of the old Roman West had shrunk to villages. So Cordoba was the second of the 3 outcomes we're exploring after Rome's fall. This civilization recycled the Roman city and invented a new kind of center designed to grow with the city. The third civilization had almost no city to inherit at all, so it reimagined one and built it from the ground up. A king named Charlemagne united and ruled most of Western Europe as the Carolingian Empire. Historians still call Charlemagne the father of Europe. On Christmas Day in the year 800, The Pope crowned Charlemagne emperor, the first man to claim the title of Roman Emperor of the West in more than 300 years. And that made Charlemagne a rival to the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople. Constantinople was a true capital, a historic city that ruled everything around it. So as the Emperor of the West, Charlemagne felt he needed a capital too, a Roman city to rival Constantinople. But in the West at that time, Charlemagne barely ruled cities at all. The Roman towns north of Italy had mostly shrunk to a church, a market, and a memory. By tradition and custom of the time, the ruling court was itinerant, riding on horseback along the old Roman roads from estate to estate. So Charlemagne set out to do something no one had tried in centuries. Like Constantine before him, he would build a new Rome using Roman design and imported Roman stone. He chose a site ringed with forest and game and fed by warm springs called Aachen in what's now Germany to raise a palace complex and a chapel to anchor his empire. His architect, Odo of Metz, patterned the chapel on the octagonal, domed design of the Byzantine-influenced church of San Vitale in Ravenna in Italy. The church is an octagon wrapped inside an octagon, its walls dissolved into acres of mosaics and marble, glass and gold. Charlemagne wanted to duplicate Roman grandeur, so he wrote to the Pope and got permission to repurpose genuine marble columns and walls from old buildings in Rome and Ravenna. He hauled them over the Alps to his northern capital. Those authentic stones would prove Charlemagne's claim to the throne. That throne literally overlooks the new chapel. The chapel has 2 levels. Down on the ground floor, among the lower arches, stood the ordinary worshippers. But high above them, in the western gallery, amongst the upper arches, is a throne of plain white marble, 6 stone steps, 4 slabs, no ornament, simple and monumental. The position is the point. The throne is placed so the seated emperor looks across the open chapel toward the altar and directly down onto the congregation far below. The emperor sits halfway between the two, the living link between heaven and earth. This is architecture staging power. Below and around, a 16-sided walkway circles beneath the central dome, wide enough for processions of pilgrims who came regularly and came in much larger numbers to see the chapel's precious cloth relics displayed every 7 years. This central dome is a great octagonal cloister vault of stone. In Europe in the year 800, the Roman technique of vaulting a wide space in stone had nearly been lost. Aachen was one of the first large vaulted buildings raised in Northern Europe in centuries. The civilization relearned construction methods, one chapel at a time. We can see the same relearning at the Gatehouse of Lorsch. It has 3 arches below and classical columns above, but it's a long way from a Roman triumphal arch. The proportions are clunky, and the surface is flat and busy. But its design isn't a failure. It's a clue about what actually mattered to the architects. A number, 3. 3 arches for the Trinity. Not the look of classical Rome, but a purposeful meaning remade. One architectural invention of Charlemagne's era, what we call the Carolingian style, would outlast all the rest. Up to now, a church had one key facade. At the east end, inside, behind the altar, where the congregation looked. The west end facade, where you walked in from the outside, was usually a fairly plain wall with an entrance. The Carolingians changed that. At the Abbey of Corvey, they raised a tall, stone building block across the entire western front of the church, a whole new facade and structure that architects call a westwork. Twin towers, a grand entrance area below, flanked by staircases leading to a high vaulted chamber with its own imperial gallery and throne room with a staged view of the congregation and altar now built into the front of the building. And that twin-towered western front became one of the most influential shapes in European architecture. Because here's what it eventually becomes: 2 towers, a monumental entrance between them, tall windows above. This is the west facade of medieval cathedrals to come. So, 3 civilizations, each holding onto a part of ancient Rome. But Europe was about to become a dangerous place, with cities raided from the rivers, the sea, and the plains. Next time on City Design, how walls and monks built the medieval city. Thanks for watching City Design. See you next time as we keep exploring how we shape cities and how cities shape us.